All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. Barth, we are 3 weeks to the day one of Patriots training camp, so we're almost there. We're getting through the dog days of summer, of the quiet portion of the NFL offseason here. So 3 weeks away. So again, we're going to kick it over to you guys in the chat today. Any questions you have about the Patriots, about training camp, about anything from the spring you want wrapped up, about the NFL in general, about the 4th of July, what are you eating, grilling, anything, throw it all in. But I mentioned NFL in general, and we will start here because there was a recent trade this week that got some news, and it was in the division. It was between another team that Patriots will also have on their schedule this year, so impacts the Patriots a little bit. And it was the Steelers sent Minkah Fitzpatrick and a future fifth round pick to the Miami Dolphins for Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a later future pick as well. So kind of a weird trade. You know, we've talked a lot about Jalen Ramsey as a guy who we knew was going to move on from Miami, but then the fact that they got Minkah back, it was kind of a weird move for both teams. I don't know what Pittsburgh is right now. You texted me that they're kind of like the Tennessee Titans, just acquiring all these veteran guys and trying to extend their window with an old Aaron Rodgers and all these guys. And I guess Miami is just trying to clear out some money because Jonnu had a really good year for them last year. I don't mind substituting Minkah for Jalen Ramsey, getting younger. But that was a weird trade from what first seemed just like a kind of a dump and a disgruntled player in Jalen Ramsey getting thrown out of Miami to then this kind of, I don't know if you want to call it blockbuster, but multiple players and picks, and it really kind of developed there into something a lot bigger.
Yeah, and how much of this is just Arthur Smith still chasing Jonnu Smith, right? Like you said, I don't know that it makes a ton of sense for either team. The Dolphins might be the winners just because I think they got the better player in Minkah Fitzpatrick. But it was a weird trade. I understand why Jalen Ramsey had to be dealt, and I guess they got something back for him, which is good, but I don't know. The whole thing was just a head scratcher, especially when you followed up with the Dolphins adding Darren Waller
out of retirement.
I mean, I've heard people say he's going to start for them at tight end. I don't know, Brian, would you be surprised if we get to mid-August and he's not on the team?
No, not at all. I don't think it's going to be him going back to his rap career, but yeah, I could absolutely see that kind of flailing out.
Right. So the whole thing was just weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. Were they bored in the down period?
I guess. I think it's just, as you said, Arthur Smith really wants Jonnu Smith for whatever reason. Right. And then there were the quotes of, I think it was, what's the Hayward that plays offense? Is it Connor Hayward on the Steelers?
Sounds right. Yeah. Yeah.
So Connor
their
Hayward,
tight end room is loaded now.
Yeah. And they had quotes of him from back in the spring when these Jonnu rumors were kind of, starting. And they're like, we don't really need Jonnu because we have Pat Freiermuth, and that's a lot of overlap. And now, well, here comes Jonnu anyway. So I don't know what that offense is going to look like. It's like DK Metcalf and 3 tight ends out there? Or they still have Roman Wilson. We'll see if Roman Wilson can make an impact. But yeah, I mean, I guess Miami, I'm kind of with you. You get a younger player in Minkah Fitzpatrick. They cleared a lot of money. Seems like that was a priority too. So I guess good move for the Dolphins there and getting Minkah back. Although he requested a trade out of Miami once, so who knows if a second request is going to come down the line. Interesting one. But the Steelers, they're doing all these kind of push the chips in the middle, get a lot of these veterans, go all in. Their best player isn't in the building, and no one's in the building. But when they were in the building, their best player, TJ Watt, wasn't in the building because he wants a new contract as well. Sounds like teams are calling. I think Schefter had that teams are calling and starting to talk trade. It would be weird if they get all these older players and they want to go all in and then they trade TJ Watt, but feels like this could be a real possibility. So is that something, if you're, kind of tie this back to the Patriots, is TJ Watt potentially on your radar if this gets really messy in Pittsburgh and they do have to move off from him?
He's on my radar. I don't think he's getting dealt because, like you said, it's like you're not signing Aaron Rodgers and building for the future. You're trying to win right now this year. I think Rodgers has said this will probably be his last year. So
yeah,
it would be, and you're not, I mean, I don't think they're a Super Bowl team to begin with, but certainly not without TJ Watt. So But you have to give him a contract. So, like, if they just can't figure something out, yeah, the Patriots should absolutely be in. I'll ask you Evan's hypothetical from Catch 22 earlier today.
All right.
Second or third round pick. We'll call it a third round pick and Keon White for TJ Watt.
Ooh, and Keon White.
Tough, right? It's tough.
How old's TJ Watt? 31, 32?
Something like that. 30.
30?
He'll turn 31 in October.
I don't know. I do love TJ Watt, former Badger, but I don't know. I don't think I would give up Keon just yet. 5 or 6 years younger. And I think we all kind of think he could be headed towards a breakout.
I think only 4 years younger.
He is an old third-year player. And I don't think
this is his age 26 season.
26. Okay, so it's only 4 years, but still. And I don't think we talk about Keon's breakout a lot. I don't think that's going to be like TJ Watt level production, but him and a mid-round pick, that could be tough for me.
So here's why I would consider it. 2 reasons. One, TJ Watt's going to be better right now, obviously. And I think you need to prioritize winning right now. Not in a Super Bowl sense, but like you have this young core and they got to see what it's like to win football games in this league. And they got to see what it takes. The other thing is, like, when we're talking about pass rushers specifically, Mike Vrabel, Terrell Williams, Zach Kerr, like this group, right? I trust them to go into the draft and find a pass rusher. So TJ Watt is going to be your bridge guy. And then I trust them to go find another Keon White in the draft. Like that. So I trust them to replace him. And then ideally you have both those guys. So it's not a slam dunk. And I'm not saying I want to quit on Keon White, but that's kind of how some of these trades have started to look. A younger player for an older player with the pick. So I'd consider it. I'd consider it.
I'd definitely consider it. And
because
that's a good point
if they add TJ Watt, and if they add TJ Watt, they're going to be a top 5 defense this year.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'd consider that, but I do love me some TJ Watt, so I would definitely consider that. Was Evan for that, or was he against that?
It's kind of the same as you're like, yeah, or like, I'd probably do it. You're not excited about it.
Yeah,
but
you don't love to give up on Keon, as you said, but it's like it's TJ Watt, right? And that is a difference maker on that defense, especially if you put TJ Watt next to Barmore, Milton Williams, like. Whew, right. Watch out.
And Harold Landry, and now that's your 4 down front.
Yeah, and that's very scary. So we'll see what happens with TJ Watt. Again, though, it's similar for different reasons, and like the Terry McLaurin stuff in Washington, like it just doesn't make any sense for them to move off. But it is a contract dispute. We'll see if that gets messy. Someone mentioned Shamar Stewart, someone we've talked about. They wouldn't just trade him. Can he even be traded? What's the rule there?
So hang on, I've got to find this. Let me look it up.
Because if he doesn't sign this year, he would go back into the draft. In next year's draft, Shamar Stewart, Bengals first round pick, who's unsigned.
Well,
for anyone not familiar,
it can depend. So, like, they can go back into the draft, or they can become a free agent.
Oh, interesting.
I think the like. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to find the article. It depends on the circumstances of which they don't get signed and how long they were in college, blah, blah, blah. They can't go back to college. I know that.
Yeah.
But let's see here. Talk a little bit.
I mean, these rules, you have to look up these rules because I don't know the last time a first round pick hasn't signed like this.
Right.
But
I don't think it's happened since they added the rookie wage scale. I know that they used to hold out when they were actually negotiating real contracts.
But I don't know, like, because he's not signed. If you can, like, is this like hockey or other sports where you can like trade their rights, right? Like that's a big thing in hockey because these guys get drafted before they even go to college or these other leagues, and you own these guys' rights and you can trade their rights. I don't know if you can, like, if they own Shamar Stewart's rights and they could trade him for something like that.
So here we go. If the Bengals won't give him a contract language he wants, somebody else will. There's a unique deadline in place for any team that wants to trade a rookie. A deal has to be made at least 30 days before the start of the regular season. So we're talking kind of coming up early August. They have about a month. I think what it would be is like the Bengals would give him permission to like talk to other teams.
Okay.
Right. And so he would negotiate a deal with the Patriots. The Bengals would essentially sign him to that deal and then trade him. So I don't know what he would be worth. Like, my guess is if I'm the Bengals, realistically, it's a second round pick. Because you're not going to get a first round pick back for him. I just don't think that's realistic. Now, that being said, the asking price for Trey Hendrickson is reportedly a second round pick. And at that point, would you rather trade Shamar Stewart and give up the rookie deal and give Trey Hendrickson the bag? Because now you have to pay Hendrickson. You lose all leverage with Hendrickson if Stewart walks. Or if you're getting a second round pick back either way, at that point, do you say, if the team's offering you a second for Shamar Stewart, hey, how about Trey Hendrickson instead? And then you have a little more financial flexibility with Shamar Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah, because they need one of those guys. So, and if they do trade Shamar Stewart, it would not be for first round pick. I would have a hard time unless like some real contender loved them in the draft and they were willing to do that. But that would be a risk. I don't think they would have the leverage, Cincinnati, to get the first round pick. So that would be interesting if it gets to that point. And as we said a lot with the Bengals, who knows where these things are going to end there. So we'll monitor that one as well as the TJ Watt and other.
But I think there's something. Let me go back to this. So it mentions if he doesn't sign his contract and doesn't play football, he could re-enter the draft. If he doesn't sign by week 10, then he can't play. I think this is what it was. So if he doesn't play this year, and don't hold me to this. This is me trying to remember off the top of my head. If he doesn't play professional football this year, he can go to the draft. I think if he goes to the UFL or Canada or wherever, he could technically become a free agent. I think. I don't know for sure.
That would be the ideal path, you would think, for him, right? Because then he could still play football and then have his choice.
Unless he doesn't want to risk injury.
Yeah, that would be the only downside. But
okay. So I was wrong. If he doesn't play in the NFL this year, he goes to the draft. If he doesn't get drafted in 2026, which most experts think he wouldn't, then he would become a free agent. He couldn't go back into the draft again.
The experts don't think he would get drafted if he went back to the draft?
That's what this one thing says, which kind of makes sense. I think teams would be so wary just about him being a pain in the ass. And you have a guy that would have sat out football for a whole year. And the track record on that is not great.
I feel like on day 3 at some point, though,
that's true.
There would be a shot. Because like this guy was a first round pick a year ago. And it would be tough. I know he sat out a full year. Besides being the off-field distractions, like how many times have guys sat out and then not been the same since they come back on the field, right? Like there's a lot of risk with that. But, a guy who was a first-round pick a year ago, I feel like someone would take a chance on day 3. But, yeah, maybe not. We know how the NFL can be with some of that stuff. But
wait, this is interesting. I'm looking at this now. Over the Cap has okay, I see what this is. So the only way he could be traded without the Bengals absorbing some of the salary would be if he was traded for another unsigned first-round pick, which I don't think there's any left. And that's irrelevant to the Patriots at that point.
Only second-round picks are unsigned.
So he's going to have to sign. Like, he's just going to have to sign with the Bengals.
Or not play. Like, it's a one or the other.
I mean, well, let's play this out. Like, if he does go back in the draft, he's not going to be a first round pick.
So he would lose a ton
out
of
of football for a year. Right. He'd be out of football for a year. He'd be a year older. He'd be kind of right or wrong. He'd be designated a pain in the ass by NFL teams. He's going to cost himself a lot of money. He's going to cost himself that 50-year option. So now why are you holding out? If you're holding out for the money and you don't sign, you're not going to get the money. So it's what, out of pride? Which I'm not going to fault somebody for doing something out of pride, but it kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
So
you would lose even more money than you're holding out for right now. So it just wouldn't make sense at that point. So
yeah.
Interesting situation. Of course, the Bengals, good old Bengals, always them. There wasn't any other NFL news, right, from the past few days or past week. We still haven't got our rival jerseys at all.
No, I'm
which is
starting. Like, when
annoying.
are those happening?
I don't know. We talked about that a lot, I think, last week. There's just nothing. There's no word about anything about with these jerseys. So hopefully they're soon. Again, I thought they would come out during these kind of quiet periods to drum up some interest, but I guess not. So we'll see. But we can jump over to the chat then, if that is our NFL news. But before we do that, I actually want to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks very quickly. And do you know ball? Because we know the sports world has quieted down a bit now that we have a champion in hockey and basketball, but summer baseball is in full swing, and you can spice up the action on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Just pick more or less on player stats like hits, home runs, strikeouts, and more for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today, and even take advantage of their weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like every Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, where projections can be discounted from 15 to 25%. Now, Barth, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but last week during this, I said Roman Anthony. We're putting Roman Anthony in our lineups every day going forward, and I think he's got like a 5-game hitting streak since. He's
been on a tear.
He's been on an absolute tear. So again, I don't want to jinx it, but I'm sticking with Roman Anthony moving forward. More than half a hit into my lineup. Pair that with something else, and it is a winner so far. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, over on Prize Picks, code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All over on Prize Picks. Run your game. Maybe we can do a little Boston sports to wrap this up too, but we do have some a couple Patriots questions here in the chat. Our pal Bader starting us off. Will the defense start slow in training camp because Terrell Williams wasn't with them, or not a big thing? Do you have any concern about that? Or, we know Terrell Williams was in contact with them on Zoom kind of throughout the spring. He's worked with Zach Kerr before a lot, who was the interim DC. It's still Mike Vrabel's kind of defense, so I'm not overly concerned with that. But do you think that could lead at all to clunky or slow start for the defense out of the gate?
No, not really. I mean, maybe like a day just to get on the same page. But it's install, it's terminology, it's pictures on a piece of paper. You can do that over Zoom. That'd be pretty concerning if this is the reason the defense starts slow. Now, having a lot of guys adjusting to a new system like that within itself, there could be some bumps for guys that are either returning from last year, free agent signings like that. Might just the overall adjustment to the system might take a little bit. But I don't think it's because Terrell Williams isn't there. If he was missing the camp, and we were talking about could him missing camp mean bumps at the start of the season? Maybe. I don't think that it should be that major of an issue. Yep.
Especially again, because there's so much familiarity on staff, right? Like Vrabel, Zach Kerr, these are all guys who've worked together before. And I don't think this should impact them, but also like Terrell Williams, he's never really coordinated and like called plays at an NFL level. So that's something like it could be a process he's got to figure out in camp. And then he should be full go for the season, but I don't think that should either impact them that much either. He's been around football so much. So I don't think it should be a major factor, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Masterful asks, is Layden Robinson injured? Don't believe so.
Not that we know of.
Been running with those kind of backup groups. So I don't think that there's an injury. Just seems like he's kind of buried on that left guard depth chart as of now. Randy, kind of an interesting one here. Do you have any thoughts on some teams kind of utterly abandoning their cornerback rooms? Teams like Miami, Vegas, some others that have virtually no talent at the position at all puzzle me. Is this some sort of trend, or are we devaluing the cornerback position in today's NFL?
I don't know. I don't know that it's being devalued. I don't know. You tell me, Brian. Are we like in a little? You've heard us talk about the offensive line shortage and the tackle shortage a lot on the show. Is there a cornerback shortage? Might be. Not as extreme as there is with the line, but like, there's all these teams without, but it's not like outside of maybe the Patriots, it's not like there's teams hoarding all the corners either. So Miami also plays a very safety heavy style of play. They also just might be tearing down their whole roster outside of wide receivers. So I don't think adding Minkah Fitzpatrick is abandoning your cornerback room. He can play both. Vegas is just in a total reset. I don't know that it's like a league-wide trend, but I do think there's like fewer good corners now than there were 5 years ago.
Yeah. I think the cornerback position has a ton of value, right? Like that's probably a premier position still, just with how much emphasis on throwing the football is in these big, shot plays in today's game. Like I wouldn't say it's devaluating, but the position, it's just, there's maybe not that much talent to spread over 32 teams in the league today. So we got to look ahead to next year's draft.
Let's do it.
Nick Harbor, one of his favorite wide receiver prospects, 6'5" with speed. He's also very smart. Would you like him in New England?
In theory, so I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Nick Harbor's a player to watch for me. That doesn't mean I think the Patriots should draft him. That means let's watch this season and see how it goes, and he might end up on that list. Nick Harbor is an athletic freak. He's 6'5", 230, runs a 4.3 40. Initially, like coming out of high school, was an edge rusher, wanted to play receiver. That's kind of how he ended up at South Carolina. They were one of the teams that was going to let him do it. Might ultimately be like a tight end at the NFL level, but one of those like pure receiving tight ends, almost like think prime, not now, but like Darren Waller, right? At 6'5", 235.
Not Miami Dolphins, Darren Waller.
No, but again, This is a guy that was recruited as a pass rusher, and that's the majority of his background. So he is incredibly raw as a receiver. We talk about, the corner to receiver, receiver to corner guys, and I'm usually a fan of those players. Like I like the receivers who used to play corner, or the corners who used to play receiver. A receiver who used to be a defensive end
is
a weird one. So let me see what he looks like. Let's see how much he's advanced technically behind the scenes this year, and then I'll have a more definitive answer. He has a chance to be a top 5 pick. He has a chance to be a day 3 pick. Like there's so much range for him right now. So let's see what it looks like after a full year of working at receiver, tight end, whatever you want to call it in the offseason. And then I'll have a better idea after the season of where I'm at with Nick Harbor, but he's on the radar.
I pulled it up. He's 57 on the mock draft database right now. So currently like that late second round pick. Definitely as you said, like the potential, he's got a quarterback too. So there's potential there for him to kind of skyrocket up those rankings by the time, we're next April and we're drafting here. So
we've got a couple guys where like top quarterbacks are paired with top receivers this year, which is nice. Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson too. Yeah. My guy, Jordan Tyson.
We won't have like Tet McMillan again with a bad quarterback. Right. Who were there any other big guys this year who just had bad quarterbacks?
I feel like a lot of them were synced up.
Travis Hunter.
There just weren't that many good receivers. Yeah, Travis Hunter. Yeah. Noah Fafita is 573 on the big board. One spot behind Thomas Castellanos, who won't shut the hell up.
Oh my gosh. I know.
What an idiot. What an absolute idiot.
He got benched. How does he not realize he got benched and then the team was better without him the last
He also said he single-handedly ran through the ACC. They went 6-6.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Florida State will be fun this year. I couldn't imagine they would move on like having gone through the DJ Uyunglele experience, who wasn't just bad. I mean, it was a clown show, and it might get worse.
Rare. That's tough. Yeah.
How hot is Mike Norvell's seat?
Ooh, I would say pretty hot. I mean, last year was bad. And then this, it's, with Tommy and I don't know.
I'm actually curious. First college football
coach fired
to get fired odds. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be first, but I think he'll be high.
Do they have any other like good talent coming back this year, or did they get any transfers?
I think Patrick Payton transferred out. So their top player on the consensus board is a defensive lineman. Shocker. Yeah, he's 106. Marvin Jones Jr. is an edge rusher. He's not bad. I'm really not familiar with anybody else on. Oh, Jalen Lucas, the running back, I know a little bit. And then
not
obviously
much.
Castellanos. Malik Benson is still playing. That's got to be a different Malik Benson. Yeah, it is.
Not much talent on that Seminoles roster.
No.
Hey, well,
no, it is the same Malik Benson. Wow, that was at Alabama, huh?
If Tommy wants to just run through the ACC by himself again, right? Like he's got the roster.
I mean, he's going to have to do it.
So there you go.
So
but, yeah,
I couldn't find odds, but Paul Feinbaum has identified who he thinks has the hottest seat in Power 4. You want to take a guess?
The hottest seat in the Power 4?
I actually don't hate this take. I don't think he has the hottest seat, but I don't hate this take.
It's DeBoer, Bama coach.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that take. I could see that.
Finally, he had a horrible take. I don't know if you heard this week, that Arch Manning would be the best college quarterback since Tim Tebow.
Yeah, I like Arch. I like Arch, but that's pushing it, I would say.
Okay, so I can't find odds, but somebody did a most likely thing, just a list. One is Brent Venables. That's actually a good.
Makes sense.
That's a good poll at Oklahoma. Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Yeah, they're kind of teetering. Mike Norvell is 3. I don't think Brian Kelly's seat's that hot. He has Brian Kelly at 4. I don't think it's that hot. Maybe it should be. But then again, they have a pretty good team. And then Billy Napier at 5. Yeah, Florida doesn't win Billy Napier. Well, we thought this was going to happen last year. We thought we were going to get Florida State both with interim coaches.
Yeah. Who? Oh, well, LSU has Nussmeier coming back, so they should be decent this year.
They have Nussmeier. I thought they hit on a big receiver in the portal.
Maybe it sounds somewhat familiar. They still have Harold Perkins. It feels like he's been around forever.
Harold Perkins, Whit Weeks.
Aaron Anderson, is that the receiver you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perkins, it feels like he's been around forever because he's supposed to come out as a true junior and then he tore his something. I don't remember if it was Achilles or ACL, but.
And now he's just been around forever. But
yeah, because he had to wait a year to rehab and then he didn't want to come out the first year back because he wasn't full strength. So this year will be his. I mean, he's out of eligibility now after this year,
But speaking of those LSU pass rushers, someone asked about Braden Swinson. Did you notice anything with his interactions with the coaching staff throughout the spring? Did they seem happy with him, frustrated? That was some of the issues in college that were maybe touched on before the draft. Did you notice anything? Seemed like he worked well with Mike Smith and that kind of pass rush group, but anything that stand out to you about those interactions?
Yeah, nothing in particular stood out to me in that regard.
Which is probably positive, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. So PFF did a top 25 and under 25 that Gonzo made. What Pats could you see make that next year other than May and Gonzo? That's a good one. Because Keon White's 26, so he wouldn't count.
I mean, you'd hope Will Campbell.
Yep.
Travion Henderson. Pop's older, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine he would be over 25 by next year. If you get me one of Will Campbell, Travion Henderson, or Kyle Williams on that, is that a win at this point?
Yeah.
I would probably say that's a win. Anyone defense? Their defense is a little older.
Their defense is older because that was all free agency.
Yeah, so not, but Barmore's 25, 26 by now.
I think Barmore's aged out of that. They have a bunch of guys who are just 25, 26, 27, just outside of that.
So give me one of those rookies from this year, offensive rookies, and I would consider that a win with May and Gonzo. If May should definitely be on there. You hope things went really bad if he's not on there. So May, Gonzo, and one of those other rookies. Do you have a breakout player this season? One offensive and one defensive.
Pop Douglas and Keon White. I think Pop Douglas is going to be in a spot to do a ton of damage in Josh McDaniels' offense. They're going to use him better. And then Keon White's it's a better scheme. He's going to be able to be more aggressive, and he's not going to be the main focus of opposing blocking schemes.
I like those. I'm with you. I was trying to figure out someone else. I don't know. Those feel like the big ones.
I feel like that question's pretty chalk.
Yeah, especially Keon on defense, just with the new staff and the scheme, and then Pop should feast a lot.
Yeah,
it's like I think like there's a lot of bounce back candidates, but true breakouts besides like the rookies, I don't think there are. Like Pop and Keon are pretty chalk.
Yeah.
Are we going to see Alex vs. Brian live showdown in college football 26? And we could go basketball 26 now. That one's coming.
Well, no, 28. We got to wait.
Oh,
I will say that the Madden franchise deep dive was today. I'm ready to get hurt. Like, they put in a bunch of cool stuff. I know it's going to come up short of expectations, but they put in some really cool stuff.
And I haven't bought Madden in years, so I don't know. You'll have to report back to me.
Did you get the college football game?
Yeah.
I think when you get the bundle, it's only like,
you get both.
Basically get Madden for like $20. Yeah.
What'd you find in your franchise deep dive that excites you?
They made it like just overall franchise and the gameplay stuff. I'm not going to get too deep into it. Like, people can go look, because I know not everybody plays this, and this was kind of true in CFB last year, and they enhanced it and they brought some other stuff into Madden. Like, I don't think you have to know X's and O's football to play the game. I think you can still play it as a more casual fan and have fun, but you definitely get rewarded a lot more now for kind of knowing how the X's and O's work, being able to recognize formations, being able to recognize route concepts, coverage concepts, rush concepts, like the way you call plays now, instead of it just being pre-built defensive plays, you call a front and a coverage. So, and some of the stuff should have already been in there, but like they put in like stunts and twists and stuff, and you can disguise your coverage, which is new. So you can like come out in a cover 3 shell and then go to cover 2 or blitz or whatever. They put in a lot of the Brian Flores, like disguise blitz stuff. They're really big this year. They used AI for like when you play coaches, they will make decisions based on how they real life would do it. So Kyle Shanahan's going to be up 14 with 5 minutes to go, and he's going to be throwing the football.
Come on.
So I think, and then some of the team building stuff too, like there's no more defensive ends. It's and like linebackers. It's Mike, Will, Sam, edge. They also added nose tackles, long snappers, and gadget players. So like knowing what that is, knowing how to incorporate that helps. Yeah, I just think they reward it. And then some of the team building stuff too. So I just think like that's kind of cool that game, like I learned a lot of what I learned early on about football was by playing Madden. And I know I'm not alone in that. I'm sure you're the same way. A lot of people the same way. Like we learned what man versus zone coverage is. We learned what, a draw is. We learned a bunch of different routes and things like that by playing the old Madden games back in the day. And I'm talking when you're like 9-10 years old. And the games were simpler back then, but we were younger. And obviously there's still kids playing Madden, but it almost feels like the game has now kind of grown with that. Like when Madden was hitting its stride, right? Like 99 to 06, the game has grown with the people who were playing it then, who were kids then, who were learning the basics from it. And now we know a little more about the game, and now the game is catching up to us, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. And it is insane though. It's taken this long to get some of that stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Well,
like,
some of the other stuff they put in, like they put in, there's like a weekly recap show with Scott Hansen. So like when you're in your franchise at the end of the week, it'll like show you highlights from other games you didn't play and scores and news and stuff, which is a cool feature that's back 20 years after NFL 2K5 had it. Madden had like sort of one, I think at like Madden 11, 12, 1 year, but it didn't have highlights and it was very bare bones. So it's like, that's cool, but it's also like, That technology existed 20 years ago.
I know.
And
like the fact that
where's
it
it
took
been?
us till 2025 to get the lawn snapper position in a football game,
That
like,
too.
come on, like that should have been in there years ago. So credit to them for finally doing it, but yeah, it took way too long. So we'll see if they could actually execute the gameplay now to figure it out. But could be promising. But one more Patriots related question I see in here. Left guard. It looks like you might have talked about this on Catch 22. Brandon Scherf. Why hasn't he been signed? And would you have any interest in adding him? It could also say Dalton Risner, the old Bengals or the Broncos guard, excuse me. He hasn't been signed. So would you have any interest in adding one of these veteran guards to the mix here?
Yeah, I don't think adding a veteran guard would be a bad idea. I don't know that you're counting on them to fix everything. I wonder if, the question is, are these guys not signed because they're hurt? Or are they not signed because they didn't want to do the spring? It's not quite the same as it is at corner, where Stephon Gilmore can miss half a camp because he's just going to come in. They're going to tell him, you cover that guy, and that's that. Like, you got to gel with the rest of the linemen. You got to get more on the same page with the quarterback. So you want to have him in for camp. Is that why these guys haven't signed, or is it because there's something more? I don't want to sign like an injured veteran, a guy who's not realistically going to have a chance to start, to take away snaps from players who need the development. But if you sign him thinking there's a chance he could win the starting job, it's not like there's a ton of competition there. I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just to bring in another veteran, kind of in that Wes Schweitzer role, even though that didn't work out. Risner is interesting because he said back in April he was going to sign soon, and listed a couple teams. Like, that was right before the draft. He said that, and he's still unsigned here. So I don't know if he got hurt or if just the interest dried up on him. But and then Scherf has kind of been quiet, so I don't know if he might just be done at this point or just doesn't want to, jump in until training camp. So I'd be for it, but we'll see, what those guys kind of timeline is there. And someone also threw in who is likely to start at center. I would say with Jared Wilson spending the spring limited, it would be kind of surprising if it's not Garrett Bradbury at this point. But I would imagine at some point this season you're seeing Jared Wilson start at center.
If Jared Wilson's fully healthy, I think it could be him. If he's fully healthy at the start of camping, can really go. But yeah, he's playing a little bit of catch up.
Yep. All right, well, that's all we have in the chat here for Patriots questions. Barth, before we leave, do you have any Boston sports takes to get off your chest? I believe you hosted radio, so I don't know if you got all those off, but busy weekends with a couple drafts.
Yeah.
Red Sox playing. Anything to get off your chest there?
The big things on the Celtics, I don't hate they're resetting the tax. I just hope this is more about Tatum's injury and a logical reset point to get younger rather than indicative of new ownership. The Bruins, have you seen Ty's rant from yesterday?
I saw some of it. Yeah. I agree with pretty much all of it. The fact that they're just kind of doing what they did last year to an extent doesn't make much sense to me. Getting more physical and tougher when you need speed and skill. I thought they finally turned the page like the last 3.5 months because they drafted really well. They got some speed and skill guys at the trade deadline, and then they just go back to all these old, tougher, physical guys and probably going to block the way for some of these young players to play. So it puzzled me. So I agreed with Ty's rant. It was great that he was on the radio for that. Got some good reaction, so I agreed with a lot of what he
always good stuff from Ty. I think the biggest thing I agree with that he said, he just kept using the word annoying, which is how I feel, because like individually, I don't hate any of the signings. Like, I want my hockey team to have some edge and be tough and crack heads, and I want to play with some aggression and some power, and so I don't hate individually any of the moves. I don't hate trading for Arvidsson. I don't hate signing Yarno. The money's a little bit much, and some of the no trade stuff is a bit heavy, but like in theory, I don't hate adding that player, and it's not a backbreaking contract. I don't hate bringing Sean Corrali back. But when that's all you're doing, when the team is so starved for skill and speed, and like Don Sweeney said yesterday, talked about, everybody can stand a little taller when you have a guy like Yarno on the ice, and we're going to have these kids, and we want to make sure they're protected. Well, what do you have? Why am I blanking on his name? The defenseman.
Zadorov.
Yeah, like you have Nikita Zadorov,
They
and you have I'm blanking
Kastelik
again
too.
Cat and Mark Kastelik. Like, how many of these guys do you need?
And
You have
and
one
that
on
was
the
the thing. Sorry to cut you off. Like Sweeney said, these guys are hard to find. Like you had 2 of them on your roster. You signed 3 of them yesterday. Like, are they that hard to find that you need to go give this guy 5-year term at like
right.
decent money? No.
So it's again like I don't necessarily hate the individual philosophy he's using. I just think he's so grossly overdoing it and doing it again. And all the reports out of Bruins dev camp were, James Hagen's, some of these other guys, it's speed, it's skill, it's quickness. And it's like, all right, like, are they really turning the page? And they did, I guess, in the sense of the draft, but they didn't free agency. And it almost feels, Brian, a little Red Soxian in that, okay, they're going to sell us on the kids. They're going to sell us on Lysell and Hagens and who was the other young center? Patra, right?
Patra,
I don't know if
they
he
got
still
Minton
counts as a kid
too.
in Minton. And it's like the kids are coming, and it's all going to be great when the kids are coming, but they're just going to kind of slack off until they get here because the sell job is going to be the kids, and we're going to find ourselves watching Providence Bruins and BC highlights all winter because that's going to be the big Bruins news. So, like, and you look at how's that going for the Red Sox? The kids are here. They blew up the rest of the team around them, and they suck.
Not great.
So I don't disagree with the philosophy. I don't hate the philosophy, but it's being done to a fault. It'd be like me saying, yeah, you got to have some size in your wide receiver room. Well, if the Patriots added wide receiver 6'5", that's great. If they added 5 versions of N'Keal Harry, yes, I wanted size, but to a point. And that's just what it feels like the Bruins. That feels like their issue. It's not a focus, it's the focus.
Yeah, and you say like the kids should, outside of Hagens, I think he would be best at BC another year, and that sounds like the plan. Like the Patras and the Mintons and the Lysells, they should just run them through the majors this year. Like let them play real NHL extended time and see what you have in those guys. Because maybe next year it's a good free agent class again. You're going to have a lot of money. Maybe you land a big fish in free agency, and then James Hagens is ready. And then what if you feel really good about Matt Patra and Fabian Lysell on your third line? Like, okay, now you have some real depth and skill and speed in your lineup, but are these guys just going to be buried for the Sean Corrales of the world again all year and not going to be able to see the ice? So,
right. How do you get these kids in the lineup now?
Yeah. And I feel like we're just going to bury them all over for all these veteran fourth liners.
Right.
And again, like you said it, in a vacuum, I like a lot of these players, but just to bring all of them in when you have some of these guys on your team, you have even young guys in Providence who have that kind of makeup, like a guy like Riley Duran, who's in Providence. He went to PC, like he's a fourth line penalty killer. Like just see what you have in those guys. I don't feel the need to pay those guys. So annoying is a good way to put it, but I'm just focusing on James Hagens. We have James Hagens. I'm happy for that.
But this is the Red Sox. Oh, we have Marcelo Mayer. We have Roman Anthony. I'm happy.
Don't ruin
the
this.
Big league club sucks. Even though the big league club sucks. Yeah, I'll go watch the Woo Sox. It's fine. Whatever. You're gonna go down to Providence, Brian? You're gonna go spend the winter at the AMP?
I'll be in Chestnut Hill all winter watching James
Chestnut
Hagens
Hill.
play.
Yeah.
That is how I'll be spending my Boston hockey winter, watching James Hagens play. Celtics, you mentioned the attack. Someone said, should they pursue Dame? Are you in that?
No, I can't believe they're linked to him. What does that do? What does that do? Even if they get him for the veteran minimum. He's a volume shooter. You need a distributing point guard with Tatum and Brown. Unless you're going to put him on the second unit, is he going to come here for the veterans minimum and play on the second unit next to Peyton Pritchard? I doubt it. Unless he just really, really, really wants a ring. I just don't get it. I like Damian Lillard. I do. I just don't think he helps the Celtics.
If he wants to come and play on the bench, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But I don't need another
coach.
Yeah. I don't need another guy who needs like 15 to 20 shots next to Jalen and Tatum,
right,
and Derek White in the lineup. So yeah, if he wants to come in on the bench, I'd be for that. But I don't necessarily see that path, but who knows? He's made a ton of money, so maybe he wants to win a ring or something like that. But all right, we'll wrap up Boston Sports Minute there, and we will wrap things up today. I want to remind everyone, please like and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass. If you are watching on YouTube, if you don't want to look at our faces and you're listening to audio, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast there as well. Tons of Patriots Press Pass content, even in the quiet portions of the offseason leading up to training camp. So make sure you're locked on. Subscribe again, turn on your notifications so you know when we go live, anyone else goes live, or post a new video up there as well. Celtics All Access, Bruins ringside. I know Amit's been down there getting that James Hagan's footage for everyone. Make sure you check out and subscribe to those YouTube channels as well. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com to read his content on there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots content there as well. So thanks again, everyone, for jumping in. For your questions. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Have a wonderful long weekend, and we will see you guys next week.